I've been a legislator for, I suppose, something like 40 years. Most of the time in the lower house in England, called the House of Commons, and then more recently I've been a leader of my own party in the House of Lords. The very first thing to do is to recognise, if you're a woman in this scene, that you need to have a real grasp of your subject. And it's quite important that you branch out from your subject being mostly things concerned with women, which is where you'll start. People will start by listening to you on things like child health, education, immunisation, even possibly things like mental health and so forth. But to establish yourself over time, it's very important that you also grasp at least the initial phases of economics, of possibly even defence, of issues that are thought to be not women's issues. Because don't forget, if you're going to be a serious legislator, all issues are your issues, not just the so-called women's issues. The second thing to say is that you'll find that quite a lot of men, in a friendly sort of way, patronise you. Don't get yourself all upset about that. Don't get a sort of a feeling that it can't be accepted, but be very polite to them, and then make it plain that you expect to be treated on the same level of argument and discussion as they are. You will probably also find that you'll get a number of men who may try to bully you. This you mustn't put up with. Don't shout back at them. Be very quiet, very much dignified, very much in charge of yourself, and at the end of it simply say, well, I'm so sorry, I'm afraid I simply can't agree with you, and leave it at that. In other words, always be dignified, always treat them with a certain degree of respect, but don't let yourself be pushed around. Several more things. It's very important, if you're a member of Parliament, if you're a member of the Parliament in Afghanistan or wherever it may be, that you recognise that you are representing both women and men. You're not representing only one gender. You have to be seen to be somebody representing everybody in your constituency. And that means you have to take up their problems and their cases. And what I would strongly recommend that you do is something that's commonplace in the United Kingdom, but very useful, that every month or even every 2 weeks you make it clear that you are going to be available for people to come and see you, to talk about their problems, to talk about their cases. You choose where you're going to be. It could be anywhere from a respectable cafe to an official room in your local council or something of that kind. But make sure you are available. Don't stand away from the people that elected you, because what will be a revolution in their eyes is actually being able to talk to a member of Parliament, a member of the legislature, as a fellow human being and not somebody terribly grand and terribly far away. A couple of other things that are worth mentioning. You will have to work with other women and you'll have to work with men. Now, don't forget, one of the great things about the coming to equality of women, their recognition as being fully human beings, fully individuals, of the same value, women as men, is that you will make friends with other women. Long ago, indeed probably until about a generation ago, women were expected to fight one another for men. That was the way that films went, it was the way that books went. This was the sort of fundamental pattern that women were all expected to be shouting at one another or tearing each other's eyes out or whatever. Even in very advanced countries like the United States, a lot of the films of the 1930s and 40s were all about two women fighting for one desirable man and struggling against one another. One of the things that's been wonderful in my lifetime has been to see friendships established between women, solid, trustworthy, lasting friendships. And that's part of what it is to be grown up, to be a full human being. So don't forget, the other women in the legislature are potential friends of yours. They have a lot of interests in common with you. They have a lot of challenges in common with you. So make friends with them. And I think it might be a good idea to think at some point about the possibility of creating a women's caucus, a group that will go across party lines on issues that do happen to affect women. As I said, don't limit yourself to those issues, but they are important. So on things like the protection of women, on things like the law, on things like the way in which the cases of women are dealt with in issues like domestic violence between husband and wife, custody of children and so forth. There you do have a common interest with other women of all parties. So I would suggest that you might want to think, when you've got into the legislature, you've been there a year or two, of establishing a women's caucus simply for those issues, to establish what are the women's interests and the women's concerns in those areas.